I want to thank CUNY Journalism School for hosting the awards committee. And I want to thank my fellow judges, Mervyn Block, Karen Burns, Jack Dacey, Toby Elkin, Gerald Eskenazi, Charles Glasser, Carol Lawson, Ben Petrusky, Robin Reisick, Wendy Schleich, and Joe Vecchione. And Amy Vitrak, who is here back there with my friends from The Record, who actually got us into this century on the internet. So for the first time we had online awards, prodded by Leslie Fox, the awards coordinator at Bloomberg, who was urging us about, I don't know, a decade ago to get with it. Anyway, print journalism, breaking news. The award goes to The Record. And I'd like somebody from The Record to come up and get this award. I'm going to name a couple of names here. But anyway, the award goes to The Record for its reporting about the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and events surrounding an alleged traffic jam at the George Washington Bridge that, of course, has evolved into multiple investigations of the New Jersey governor and the Port Authority. The Record's John Chikowski, did I say that right? The paper's road warrior columnist was the first to sense the stink surrounding the traffic tie-ups. The beat reporter soon uncovered even more questionable behavior at the Port Authority. Sean Boberg, the beat writer whose work took the lane closure decision to the governor's office, uncovered a sweetheart deal. This really blew my mind. That in the 1980s, a top official at the Port Authority was given the rights to the trademark of the World Trade Center for $10. So I want to give these guys their award. They did a great job, and guess what? It's not even going to be the last time you hear about that story tonight. The Merit Award goes to the Greater New York staff of the Wall Street Journal for its outstanding coverage of the Metro-North train derailment. The Journal's team was the first to report that the engineer had made no apparent effort to brake as the train approached that dangerous curve where the speed limit on the rails dropped precipitously. Please come up, somebody from the Journal. In the meantime, thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. I could go let everybody give a speech, but nobody voted except me to be here until 2 o'clock in the morning. For feature news in print, Benjamin Weiser of the New York Times wins for his story Swastikas, Slurs, and Torment in Town Schools about the troubled history of religious hatred in the Pine Bush Central School District that serves 3 upstate counties. Come on up, Ben. The Merit Award also goes to the New York Times to John Leland for 58 years and counting, a love story. John was visiting his mother at an assisted living building when he noticed 2 men in their late 80s dining amidst the sea of widows. He focused on this couple, and it turned out to be this magnificent look back at gay life in New York for decades. John, is John here? Okay. The investigative reporting award goes to the New York Times for Bad Cop, a year-long series. Francis Robles, are you here, Francis? Michael Powell, Sharon Otterman, and Anna Kleinfeld. Thank you very much. Congratulations. I have to admit, I leaked the news of that one because Sharon was standing in front of the, no, Frances was standing in front of the George Polk Awards exhibit where they won for this story also. And I said, guess what? I hope you have another time open on May 15th. Anyway, if you don't remember that story, this is the one about this detective in Brooklyn, Lou Scarcella, on 175 murder cases, unjustly caused the imprisonment of dozens of defendants. That story's still going, and some of these guys are still getting exonerated. The Merit Award in this highly competitive category. The Wall Street Journal, Behind the Bridge Jam by Ted Mann and Heather Haddon. As one judge put it, and I mean our judge, not one sitting on a bench, this story is a primer for journalists on how to unravel and build a TikTok of possible government malfeasance. It's the who did what and when. In sports reporting, there was a tie for first place. Guess what the story was? Anybody want to guess who's not a sports writer? What rhymes with lightning rod? A-Rod. Co-winners, the New York Daily News and the New York Times. Alex Rodriguez, Steroid Investigation by Terry Thompson, Michael O'Keefe, Christian Redd, Nathaniel Vinton, and Bill Madden, one for the Daily News. Let's have them come up first, and then I'll talk about the Times. Oh, no, in the meantime, I'll give you the verbiage on the why there are two winners in this category. Our judges decided that this was broad breakthrough coverage and that the stories were so different that we couldn't decide. Because the New York Daily News team led the narrative of the A-Rod investigation throughout the year, and especially about his counter, A-Rod's own lame efforts. And so what our judges said was the Daily News broke new ground with its constant ongoing look at the investigation and behind-the-scenes revelations. So congratulations to the Daily News. Okay, great effort. Then later in the year, the Times team, and it was hard to believe it could happen, but they dug up a lot more new material in an exhaustive look back at the A-Rod saga in what, again, our judges called an all-encompassing one-time investigation of the story. So we just decided that the stories were so different and so great, they had to be two winners. Another fine story that gets the Merit Award is Newsday for Miracle Men by Tom Rock. Our judges said Newsday's look at the evolving science of treating one-time career-ending ACL injuries was written with sensitivity and expertise. It's quite a fascinating story. Tom here he is. Okay, in business and financial, Susan Antilla, now a freelance commentator and reporter, produced her winning entry, a rise in requests from brokers to wipe the slate clean for the little outfit that finally published it, a deal book, the New York Times. Now, if you missed this, her article highlighted the attack by brokers who are desperately trying to expunge the record. So if we actually try to look up what they're doing, we don't know that they're big dirty bums who ought to be in prison. I'm paraphrasing Susan's language, of course. But it was a great story, and it did get a lot of action, and the regulatory group that was about to let these guys slide actually had to pretend to be looking at it again. In case anybody's wondering about inequality of pay between men and women, Susan happens to write about that sometime. I know that's not in the news now. Okay. Now we have another dilemma for the Merit Award. These are two completely different stories. So the first Merit Award goes to Newsday for Co-op's Catch-22 by Maura McDermott. This is an examination of the Long Island real estate market, which captured the financial after effects that Hurricane Sandy is having on Long Island real estate markets, insurance rates, and foreclosures. As I said, we took the apples and oranges approach on this one. So the other Merit Award goes to the New York Times for Remote Control Inside the Power of ESPN by Steve Eater, James Miller, and Richard Sandermeer. I don't know whether you guys read this story. A really long story. It was great. Extensive takeout that illuminated what I characterize as the mutation of college sports. Thank you very much. Congratulations. The mutation of college sports by marketing-driven university administrations that are hell-bent on capturing the flow of favorable publicity and the broadcasting revenue from ESPN. And the ESPN, when you read this story, you realize it's really rewriting the rules of sports in college. Okay, science and health reporting. The award goes to Donald G. McNeil, Jr. of the New York Times for his front page story, Poor Black and Hispanic Men Are the Face of HIV. McNeil's vivid and poignant reporting from the gritty precincts of New York City brought to life and made palpable just how the government, in its otherwise successful campaign against the virus that causes AIDS, has fallen short when it comes to preventing and treating the disease in these underserved and neglected populations. A Merit Award goes to Brian Grewley of Bloomberg News for his series Gray Areas about sex issues among the elderly. I know my old pal Mike Serrell is going to come collect this award. Let me tell you about this report, because Brian, I think, is in Chicago. Oh, no, Leslie Fox is coming up. Oh, okay. Brian's reporting from a home for the elderly in the Bronx and then another one in Iowa contrasted how sex is, among the elderly is treated. It's somewhat of a taboo subject, but actually quite fascinating as we all get there. Anyway, arts. Yeah, okay, Mike says, speak for yourself. Arts and culture. The Wall Street Journal's Jennifer Maloney wins for her ongoing coverage of the battle for survival by the City Opera Company. Her carefully reported articles gave us an understanding of the company's financial struggles and insight into the thinking of the managers, board members, and artists who perform with City Opera. The Merit Award goes to Vern Gay, the television critic for Newsday. Vernie, are you here? I know we have a contingent from Newsday. He won for his feature It's Good to Be Bad, which analyzed the cable TV show Breaking Bad, and the brilliant attention to detail, science, and the tension between good and evil that helped make that program so memorable. It's hard to be a TV critic and write about something and make it interesting for people who haven't watched the program. Okay, editorial writing and commentary. The Record, a series of editorials by Alfred P. Doblin that challenged the Archdiocese of Newark and the Vatican for ignoring the behavior of a child-abusing priest. This first prize series of editorials chronicled the newspaper's growing indignation with Archbishop John Myers. You'll love this. He refused to accept responsibility for what happened on his watch, but he did have the audacity to transmit a letter to his clergy to be read at all the masses, condemning the media for reporting on his failures. You gotta love that, huh? The Merit Award goes to Genia Belafonte for her big city columns about the underprivileged classes in New York City. I'm not sure who from the Times is here to accept that because I know she couldn't be here tonight. She told me so. News analysis. Medallion for news analysis goes to the Wall Street Journal for its thorough and thoughtful coverage of the mayoral race by a guy who's a triple barrel name like I am, and I got his names all jumbled up in the awards newspaper. So I apologize to Michael Saul Howard, or as he's correctly known, Michael Howard Saul. Andrew Grossman and Sophia Hollander. The journal team analyzed not only the characters.
Thank you so much.
That's the series of stories. The journal analyzed not only the characters of the mayoral candidates, but also the fiscal issues facing the city. They covered everything from Anthony Weiner's personal conduct, which gives a lot of latitude, Derek, to Christine Quinn's travel expenses and Bill de Blasio's flip-flopping on term limits and how his interracial marriage affects his thinking. The journal examined in depth what was at stake with various city contracts with unions and made a concerted effort to understand how the new mayor-elect might choose to govern. It was a very interesting bit of work. Public service. This is, I would have to say, the #1 award here for a number of reasons which will immediately become clear. The unanimous winner for public service is Newsday's Hidden from View series. It was a finalist at the Pulitzer Prize, but it's a winner at the Silurians. Newsday investigated police misconduct for 9 months, reviewing and analyzing previously secret internal affairs memoranda and other documents showing that more than 100 Long Island cops were involved in serious misconduct, yet they remained on the job or continued to work for years. Among other things, the stories proved that some police officers had filed false testimony and improperly used deadly force. That's not necessarily open page 1, except that it was all unknown to the public until the Newsday series. Our judges called this a magnificently reported, multi-layered investigation into police misconduct, and I'm adding a few words here, and even worse, the state laws that conspire to cover it up. So congratulations. Merit Award to The Record. Suburbia's Deadly Secret, a series about the scourge of prescription drug abuse. One of our judges categorized the work by Rebecca O'Brien and Thomas Mashberg as powerful, detailed reporting and a stellar investigative piece that I hope will have a profound influence not only on the communities in New Jersey, but also across the country. This, too, was a really great series, and I would say everybody here should read both of these winners. They were unbelievable. Photography, breaking news. Here's a case where, as an old broadcaster, I should have definitely looked up the winner at the cocktail reception and asked him how to pronounce his name. John, are you here? Tell me how to pronounce your last name, or I can screw it up, but Paraskevas. John Paraskevas, staff photographer for Newsday for Snowstorm. See if I can do it twice. Paraskevas captured the essence of a blizzard with his harrowing portrait of the weather to come. You'll get chills just looking at his photo of the car stuck every which way in the snow on Route 347, where I'm glad I wasn't. Lake Grove, Long Island, last year. The Merit Award goes to the Record and to the Daily News for their absolutely stirring pictures of victims, unfortunately. For the Record, Englewood double murder was photographed by Tariq Zahawi. Tariq captured the raw emotion of a woman reacting in screams after she learned of the murder of her sister-in-law and her niece, highlighting the horror of domestic violence with the most tragic endings, a young mother and child dead. Husband and wife was tellingly photographed by Daily News staff photographer David Hanshaw. Are you here, David? Shortly after a truck ran down 65-year-old Olga Ramirez at Park Avenue and 102nd Street, David was there to capture the tragedy. The caption says it all. Please don't die, not today. How could this happen on your birthday? Photography feature. Without question, the judges said the medallion goes to Daily News photographer Debbie Egan Chin. Her pictures of the Hurricane Sandy aftermath needed no words, the judges said. I guess that's what pictures are really supposed to do, especially if we're not paying attention. She wrote, as a news photographer, I've done a one-year anniversary disaster stories before. But in this case, I also lived Hurricane Sandy as a wife, mother, and homeowner. 1 year after is very personal and continue to live with it. It was so hard that she started taking pictures of all her neighbors and everybody else.
Thank you.
Very telling series there. Merit Awards for Under the Boardwalk by Newsday's J. Conrad Williams, Jr. That picture shows the lingering aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. And then the Record wins a Merit Award for Amy Newman, a staff photographer who took a picture captioned, "None having fun." Amy was apparently driving home from work and she saw a nun playing basketball in her habit. And sort of did a little U-turn, whipped the camera out, and started shooting. After she asked him, of course, do you mind if I take your picture? Anyway, it's a really fun picture. Right? And the nun is kind of driving to the hoop. Now we shift to magazines. Anybody remember any corruption at St. John's University? Steve Fishman of New York wins for The Dean of Corruption, in which he dug behind the story of the suicide of St. John's University fundraiser Cecilia Chang. Now, her death had been thoroughly reported in the papers, especially the tabs, but there hadn't been much questioning of the institutional explanation of how Miss Chang had plundered the school for years and why she'd escaped detection. This story helped force the retirement of the president of St. John's and the resignation of his chief of staff. Fishman kind of smelled more than one rat here. And then here's how he put it. The top officials pretended to be shocked, or professed to be shocked, that for 20 years she'd been stealing right under their noses. The contention struck me as preposterous, and of course it was. Is Steve here? Yeah. Okay. The Merit Award goes to Fortune for Peter Elkin's story, The Trouble at Bloomberg. Now, I have to say, as a guy who worked at Bloomberg for 6 years, one, that he never called me. Two, I know how hard this story was to do. And three, he really nailed it. After interviewing more than 80 current and former Bloomberg employees, Elkin lifted the curtain on the ongoing power struggle and missteps at the company owned by the then mayor of New York that has become the world's most powerful financial information company, although I think Dow Jones might dispute that, or maybe even Reuters. But one of them, let's call it one of them. Peter, come on up. Feature writing, the award goes to the nation for its special issue, Bloomberg's New York, the Gilded City. That was the magazine's first special issue devoted to New York City since its publication began in 1865. Assembled by nearly 24 writers and editors, the May 6, 2013 issue was distinguished by the breadth and the depth of its analysis of the city's strengths and weaknesses and its assessments of the past, present, and future of the metropolis. Congratulations. Thanks for coming. The Merit Award goes to Vanity Fair for What Lies Beneath by William Languish, his exploration of the world below Manhattan. His account of Hurricane Sandy, assault on the transportation network, and the travails of the water and sewer and energy infrastructure is gripping. He's not here, but we have somebody doing something. Thank you. Public service. The award goes to a story called Fleeced by Fees, an expose by David Evans for Bloomberg Markets Magazine, which showed how New York-based investment firms, especially like Morgan Stanley, soaked up more than $11 billion in profits on managed futures accounts while passing on almost nothing in earnings to their client investors. Evans showed how Morgan Stanley marketed these managed futures funds as a way for investors to protect themselves from stock market plunges, and then Morgan Stanley picked them clean. They reported that the fund had made $490 million over 10 years. That sounds good, except that their fees were $498 million, resulting in an $8 million loss for investors. Anyway, David Evans can't be here, so Michael Searle from Bloomberg Markets is accepting. David, I know, is on the West Coast. The Merit Award goes to Roger Parloff of Fortune for a story that, for those of you who don't understand insider trading and aren't worried about being prosecuted but would still like to know what it really is, should read this story by Roger Parloff of Fortune, which explained the intricacies of the seemingly simple notion of insider trading and how it really works when you apply the legal system to the ideal. In investigative reporting in television, the reward goes to reporter Walt Kane, producer Karen Antonito, cameraman editor Anthony Coco, and the News 12 New Jersey team for its medallion for the Fenimore Fumes, which is a series about a landfill cleanup that went bad. It was supposed to be an environmental cleanup, and it turned out to be a really dangerous project that jeopardized the health of thousands of citizens, and the New Jersey legislature passed some laws about how these remediation projects should be handled from now on. I'm not sure Walt's here because a little screw up in communications and he didn't necessarily know about this award, so we'll get it to him. And we're sorry he's not here. Anyway, you're in radio. Breaking news, wall-to-wall coverage by WCBS. The Sunday morning derailment in the Bronx wins the prize. Reporters Monica Miller, Peter Haskell, and Paul Murnane were on the scene when the CBS anchors were going crazy with interviews with various government officials and outside experts. WCBS, we here? Yeah. Jane Tillman Irving. She might as well stay up here because she's the winner in the next category. Feature news. And she pointed out to me another triple barrel name. Tillman is my middle name. It's not Tillman Irving. No hyphen, no English nonsense.
File under I.
Yeah, file under I. So she wins the feature for WCBS Radio for her stories about the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington and what it meant to her and the minority communities of New York and the nation and her family. It was a terrific piece. The Merit Award for radio features goes to Carol Zimmer of Bloomberg Radio for An Empire Built on Tacos. This was a story about wandering around Lower Manhattan with the co-founder of Chipotle and poking around the kitchen with him, trying to figure out what made it into a 1,300 unit or 1,400 unit restaurant that is favored by my twin daughters. And by a lot of investors. Okay, in online, breaking news. The medallion goes to DNAinfo.com, New York's Murray Weiss. Murray, get up here. His story revealed that Metro-North engineer William Rockefeller admitted he was dozing at the wheel shortly before the crash. That's when we first knew that he was snoozing. The Merit Award to Newsday for its staff for the monumental blizzard coverage that kept thousands of Long Islanders who were stranded updated about the hazards and the terrible conditions. The investigative reporting web exclusive. Guess what? This is the one, this is the reason that the Hidden from View investigation, I said, was the #1 winner, because it wins twice. Our judges insisted that there was this story, which was already fabulously well developed in print, expanded even further on the net, and had a lot of good exclusive stuff there. So Sandra Petty and Adam Playford, you're going to come back up here. They wrote the lead story with help on the overall investigation from Matt Clark, Gus Garcia Roberts, and Will Van Sant. I didn't mention the rest of those people on the internet part. The interactive version, aided in design, development, and web by Ron Griffo, Arturo Jimenez, and Aaron Geismar. If you want to look it up, quite a piece. Merit Award to ProPublica for Out of Order series by Joaquin Sapien, with assistance from Sergio Hernandez, Artie Shinani, and Mulaney Hicken. This was a story about who polices prosecutors when they abuse their authority. Usually nobody. Anyway, I'm not sure if ProPublica's here, but got anybody? No, okay. Online commentary from Newtown, Connecticut. Rob Cox of Reuters. He's a resident of Newtown. And his breaking views columns about the school shooting and its aftermath were absolutely gripping. He was returning from an overseas trip and landed at JFK when he first learned about the mass murder at Sandy Hook and that his own son was in lockdown at the middle school. Murray Weiss, come on up here, Merit Award for his On the Inside column titled Baby Hope's Murder, Mother Found 22 Years After the Girl's Murder. Weiss's dedication to following this haunting cold case is evident, and it helped lead to the eventual identification by police of the young girl's real identity. In public service online, the medallion to Sonia Sharp of DNA Info for her three-part series on the educational failings of the yeshiva school system in Brooklyn that has resulted in tens of thousands of Jewish students being ill-prepared for further education as well as life in general. The title of her first article spoke volumes. English is absent, math doesn't count at Brooklyn's biggest yeshivas. Anyway, it's quite a story. So we're pick any religion that's not doing its work, we give a Silurians Award if you expose it. Merit Award to Matthew Katz, DNA Info, for his reporting about how the New York City AIDS charity walk has provided multi-million-dollar benefits to administrators and the for-profit company that runs it, while the gay men's health crisis was getting shortchanged.